Okay, everyone, welcome to our last IT 1001 live chat. Just a couple of reminders as we wrap up the semester. The first thing is that please get all your outstanding assignments submitted by December 21st. That is the absolute last day that I can receive any assignments, okay? Because I have to get your final grades in soon after that. You know what happens usually, again, the holidays come, everyone gets busy. As we know, the 21st is the last day of the semester. And then we have Christmas is 3 days later. And then New Year's comes after that. So everything gets really busy. So we need to get our final grades in and start calculating them sooner rather than later. So I can't accept anything after the last day of the semester. In fact, the system will shut off then. The college actually will shut down Canvas for the most part. And SimNet will also not be functional after the 21st. Okay, so please get the assignments in then, all right, by then, all right, at the latest, December 21st at 11:59 p.m. All right, after that date, the system's probably going to not be accessible where you can submit. You can still access stuff, but you won't, the submission box will be over because what happens is there is an end date in Canvas for the semester. So I think a lot of your instructors probably are asking for your assignments even earlier than the 21st, because the 21st is like the drop dead date of you getting in the last remaining assignment. So please be mindful of that. I'm happy to say that most students, the vast majority of students, over 50%, I think even over 60%, have done all the assignments required for this class. And you finished it early. So that's wonderful to really see. You know, I do review the grades periodically, and it's really good to see all the progress students are making. But there are some students who are still not completing assignments, or they're waiting until the last minute. So if you're one of those students, if you're one of those procrastinators, I'm not going to be a hater and say that's terrible and all that. It happens, right? Like I had mentioned, we're all procrastinators. I was a procrastinator at one point in my college career, right? In my time in college, I'm a human being. We're all human beings. Sometimes we're not always proactive. It's going to happen. Just don't make a habit out of it, all right? But one thing is for sure is that when you wait to the last minute, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to get everything in by the deadline. So don't put that pressure on yourself. Try to get as many assignments submitted as early as you can. Today is the 13th, so you pretty much have a week to get any outstanding assignments submitted, all right? Likewise, if there is an assignment, if there are any of the quizzes or the projects or the Let Me Tries that you want to redo for any reason, please email me and I can reset them for you, all right? For you to get a second shot. I had mentioned this weeks ago. I'm still keeping that opportunity open for you, where I'll let you redo anything you want to redo, okay? Just email me, let me know. I'll go into the system. I'll give you that second shot or even that third shot if you need it, okay? The most important thing is understanding the concepts and getting things done the right way, all right? Another thing I want to tell you is that there's no final exam for this course per se. You do have a final exam grade, but like I mentioned last class, it's an average out of your quizzes and your projects. So all that stuff is averaged out. Within your quiz grade, if you look at the grading criteria in Canvas, you'll also see your live chat assignments. So the live chat assignments are just as important as the quizzes that you take for this class. I think the live chat assignments are easier to complete than the quizzes because I pretty much give you an easy assignment. You just have to watch this chat. Okay, so please keep in mind the live chat assignments. Get them into if you're missing them. If you're missing them, there will be a penalty. You know, if some students have submitted live chat assignments from the first week of the class, all right, so the lowest amount that you'll get on that is a 60. I'm sorry, the highest amount will be a 60. Okay, so most likely if you're getting stuff in from weeks ago, you'll get a 60, which is really just baseline, okay? But at least it'll be better than a 0. So I wanted to give you these opportunities to get any assignments in that you're missing. And unfortunately, there are some students who didn't do anything in this class or just did really, really bare minimum. I expect to hear from those students usually the last day of the semester, and they'll say, is there any makeup work I can do? And unfortunately, if you didn't make progress the entire semester, I can't just give you makeup work to get it in the same day and have you pass the class with an 80 or a 90. That ain't gonna work, okay? Because then it really does a disservice to everyone who is focused since the first day of class. And I can tell you we have about 5 to 10 students who are gonna do that to me. I have 200 students and it happens every semester. So learn now. I'm telling you now, for those 5 or 10 students who didn't do much, get as many assignments in now before the end of this week. Okay, because by the 21st, I can't take anything else. I can't. All of a sudden, students start waking up on the 21st and they'll email me at 8 o'clock at night, 4 hours before anything I could do anything, and say, is there a makeup I can do? I have a 29 in the class. It's not, there's nothing I can do because it's physically impossible to pass the class with 4 hours left to go in the semester when you didn't do anything the entire semester. Now you wake up, right? So please, please, I'm doing this for your benefit because I really care about you guys. If you have a 20 in the class right now, I would say stay up 24 hours a day for the next 7 days. Get as many assignments in as you can. All right, you're gonna have to work your butt off to get these assignments in. But maybe, you know, we'll pray a little bit. Maybe you'll pass the class. I don't know. Get as many assignments in as you can. Okay, just don't email me on that last day because there's really nothing I can do for you because it's physically impossible. Okay. So those are the two things I wanted to talk about. And then we're going to finish up the database concepts for today. There are a couple more things that I want to cover for you, which I think are important in relation to Microsoft Access. Those two things are, we're going to create a query, which is a question. We'll create a couple of queries, which are questions that you can ask the data in your database. And then we're going to create a report. The report is pretty easy to create. You go through a wizard. The query we create in Design View. And as you probably know, Design View is a little bit more complicated, but it's a better way to learn how to create objects than going through and creating those objects through the wizard. If you've been following along with the Access lessons, especially the Let Me Tries, you've probably seen that there are two ways to create tables. The first way is by creating the table in Datasheet View. Okay, Datasheet View is an easy way to create a table, right? There are drop downs, right? You have the table structure in front of you. You click on the drop downs and you put the fields in. That's like the main view of your objects. But then we have the behind the scenes, the backstage view. And that backstage view is called Design View. Now, to me, when I learned Access, and I learned Access about 20 or so years ago, I always created things through wizards and all that. And I said, you know, I have less flexibility with what I want to create than if I learned the harder way, the more difficult way. I have less flexibility than if I learned it the more difficult way. But, right, so the less flexibility is not a good thing, right? So I'll have more flexibility in creating things the more difficult way, but it is more difficult to actually create. So Design View, more difficult to use, but you have a lot more flexibility in what you want to do. You can take the easy way out, create these things through wizards. We're going to take the easy way out with the report, because the report, when we create the report today, we're going to use a wizard. A wizard is a step-by-step process that asks you questions. Like anything in life, you can take shortcuts and you may get the job done and you may do the job really well for certain things, but not everything you should take a shortcut for. Sometimes you have to do things the more difficult way to really do a wonderful job, okay? And so you can relate databases to life. With Access, when you're creating a query in Design View, you have a lot more flexibility. So we're going to start with that query, okay? Something else I wanted to tell you is that anyone ever design websites? Does anyone have any HTML background, hypertext markup language background, in doing the coding for websites? Well, if you do, and you can unmute yourself if you want, you can type in the box, the chat box, whatever you want to do if you have any background in that. There are two ways to create websites. There is an easier way and there's a more difficult way. Everyone here in this class has the ability to create a website without buying any software, right? If you have a PC, there's something called Notepad. You can download something called Notepad Plus for free, or there's Notepad. You just type Notepad in the search box and you'll have a plain vanilla text editor. Adrian said Wix.com. Wix.com allows you to create a website through wizards. Right, so that's another way you create. But that is, it's great to learn how to use Wix.com, but that's an easier way to create a website. You can learn HTML. If you go to W3 Schools, so the letter W, the number 3, schools.com. It's great. I don't know if I showed you guys this because that's just an extra added stuff that I'm mentioning. That's not in your book, what I'm mentioning right now. You can learn how to create websites from the ground up using something called Notepad. Notepad is a plain vanilla text editor. And with the plain vanilla, that's what we like to call it, plain vanilla text editor. With that, you can actually start typing in HTML code to create simple websites. All right, and you can actually create more advanced websites using that plain vanilla text editor. Or you can buy Dreamweaver for a couple of $100 from Adobe, and you can create it through wizards and through clicking and dragging. It's object oriented. So objects you can actually see on the screen, they look like icons, right, with pictures on them. You can create your web page that way. Everything looks beautiful, but you're only limited by the tools that the programmers who created Adobe Dreamweaver, all right, whatever they gave you, you're limited to, all right? Because, I mean, you can go to Dreamweaver and use also code in HTML if you wanted to, but for the most part, people use Dreamweaver by clicking and dragging objects on the page. Now, if you're using Notepad, Notepad is a text editor. It's designed for you to type in reports and create documents. It's not for HTML, but you can type, HTML is text-based. So you can type in all the coding to create web pages. And the sky is your limit. Space, the galaxy is your limit. All right, you can do anything you want if you learn the more difficult way to do things, right? Because then you have the great flexibility. You're not provided with an interface. You're doing everything from scratch, but it's more difficult to learn. So just something to keep in mind. And that's true for Access too, because behind the scenes, when we have design view of all these objects, you have a lot more flexibility in what you can do in design view, but you have to be more knowledgeable to understand how to do these things in design view. So we're going to create the query in design view, but also keep in mind that you can create the query using the query wizard. And then in the report, you have design view of the report. You also have the wizard in the report, but the wizard does everything pretty much what design view does. It's really not much of a difference. So I'd rather use the wizard because the wizard is a lot more flexible. It's a lot more intuitive, and design view doesn't really do much more than what you could do in the wizard, okay? Which is different than the query. So let's do that. We'll go through that and then we'll wrap it up, okay? One thing too I wanted to do with you really briefly as a little bonus is to go through a decision structure, which is going to be helpful for you if you ever start doing logic with databases. So within the query, we can use something called a decision structure. And if you're a programmer, if you're an IT major, you're going to see this later on throughout the program, is where you create statements. They're decision statements, and they're called if, then, else statements. You may have seen that before. If you're a programmer, if you're an IT major here, you would have seen that. Most of you guys in the other programs probably never came across an if statement unless you learned it in high school, because now they're teaching coding even in elementary school. That's something that we're getting even the little kids involved with, elementary education, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, how to create code like this, just like what we're doing now. We're teaching it to 6- and 7-year-olds. So it's not that difficult to understand, but it takes a little bit of work in order to really comprehend what's going on, but it's not that difficult. So it's testing out data. We'll talk about that using a built-in if statement in Access, and we'll go through the concept of the if statement. So those are things I want to cover. It shouldn't take us too long to cover these things, and then we'll just wrap it up. It's our last chat, and that's it, right? And we have the holiday season and all that wonderful stuff. Just get those assignments in by December 21st if you haven't done that. What I want to do is share my screen, and we'll start working in Microsoft Access. Does anyone have any questions in the meantime? Okay, fantastic. All right, so these are the class notes. Today is December 13th, and these are some of the things that we've covered already. We created our wonderful table. We had our fields. We had 2 records. Remember how many fields are in this table? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what we're doing, we're counting the columns, and we have 2 records. The records are the actual data. This first row here is our field name. So this is not a record. So the record starts with 1, Daisy Duck, the address and all that other wonderful stuff. We took those profile pictures, we took them off Google, right? And we copied and we pasted them within our database. So when opening up the database, remember, we had our wonderful form that we created. Remember, the form is a formatted interface for entering, viewing, and editing and deleting table data. That's a simple definition of the form. So with the form, we're able to actually see now our customer image, and we're able to see all the fields on our customers, okay? And I can go clicking on the navigation buttons on the bottom here. I can go from record to record, and we see a wonderful collection of data. This data is the way this data is formed is the way companies will organize and store their data. So if you ever work in any type of supply chain job, if you work in an inventory information system job where you're maintaining inventory, you're keeping track of products, you're keeping track of customers, you're keeping track of resources, you're going to run into something like this. In fact, the good jobs are going to ask you to create something like this. And you can go, by all means, go into Microsoft Access and create this for the company and teach the company, especially smaller companies, how to create something like this. because it does come in handy. Now, this is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes with databases. We've only been covering databases for 2 or 3 weeks. You can take an entire relational database class and learn this from the ground up. You can imagine if you cover this for 15, 16 weeks, the beautiful databases that you can build. And we didn't even talk about relationships in databases yet. And we're not going to talk about it in this class, but databases have more than one table. We see here, we only have one table, right? That one table contains the records, 3 records, right? Now, this table is one, and you can have almost a limitless, an unlimited amount of tables in your database. So this only has one. A relational database has more than one table that are related to each other, all right? So for example, the most common relationship, and you can read about this in your book if you read the chapters in Access, is the one-to-many relationship. So theoretically, we can build a database that keeps track of customers. That's wonderful, but we want to go beyond that. We also want to keep track of orders that the customers make. So for example, a one-to-many relationship in a database would mean each one single customer can place more than one order, right? One-to-many. So Daisy Duck can place several orders. So you would create a second table here. You can just go to Create Table, or Table Design, like I said, is the better way to do it, Table Design. And you can create a table on orders for your database. So one customer can place many orders. That is that one-to-many relationship. So you're going to see in your careers, you're going to see databases that have more than one table likely, and they're going to have one-to-many relationships. One customer can place many orders. What I always tell my students and everyone else when I teach this is I want you to theorize, think about different relationships for databases. Think about different one-to-many relationships. So for example, another one-to-many relationship that I can think of off the top of my head is that one referee can play in many games, can officiate many games, right? That's a better way to put it. So for example, you can have a whole table of referees, right? Just off the top of my head, if you're, believe me, the NFL, the National Soccer Leagues, the International Soccer Leagues, they keep track of Major League Baseball umpires, keep track of referees, umpires, and they have a whole database like this with their first name, last names, other statistics and other fields about the umpires and the referees. And then they'll relate it to a second table to keep track of which games the referees are officiating. So that's another way you do the one-to-many. In the library, if you ever go to the public library, how many people go to the library anymore? Most people just use the internet, right? But there are libraries that still exist where you can take out books. A library will have all its clients, first name and last name of you, of me, of everyone. And then the second table will be the loans, what's being loaned to you. The loans are not going to go into this table because they're not unique to you, right? This is uniquely your information, where you live, your name, other unique information that's not going to change frequently. Where you live is not going to change very frequently. It can change, but not frequently. The loans, what the library is loaning to you, the books and other resources are going to change. That's the many side of the relationship. So just for now, think about one-to-many relationships. It's going to help you out later on because that's really getting into that normalization process. And we said normalization, that's another key word, means designing your database. So right now we have our wonderful database here. I'm going to go back to my beautiful notes. And that's this one. And I'm going to give you a definition of a query. And a simple definition, a query is just a question you can ask a table. So what questions can we ask this table? So let's take a look at this table, and we have a similar table in our database. I see that we have 2 records, and usually tables have more than one record. All right. A table is a table if it has one record, but sometimes tables have millions of records. Amazon has millions of customers. So Amazon's table, which looks something like this, has millions of records. We only have 2 here. Okay. So our query, our questions are going to be limited. But looking at the table that I have in my Access database here, I see that we have 2 customers from New York and we have 1 customer from Colorado. And I'm sorry, this is small. I can't increase the size of the screen because Access does not allow me to zoom in. I can't click on the zoom button, bottom right. All right. But when I ask a question of this, one question that I can ask is, how many, like not how many, but show me the customers from New York. So right now we have 2 customers from New York and we have 1 from Colorado. Just show me. I just want to see a subset of records from the superset. These 3 is a very small superset. This is the main set. A subset is a portion of the superset. So my subset, I just want to get, so queries show you a subset of records. I just want to see those customers from the state of New York. It's easy to see here. I see we have 2 customers, but what if you had 1 million records here? How are you going to be able to see everyone from New York, right? You want everyone just from New York on the page. You don't want to mess around with all the other states. You just want to concentrate on people from New York. You create a query for that. So let me create a query on this table. So very much like we created the other objects, the way we create a query is we click on the object, which is customers. That's customers table. Remember, these are objects. Tables are objects. Forms are objects. Queries are objects. And reports are objects, okay? We're going to create a query on the customer table. So I'm going to make sure I click on the object, customers table, and then I'm going to go to create. So make sure that's created. That's clicked on, create, and then click on the query design button. Like I said, design is a more flexible way to do things. Once I do that, I'm going to get on the right-hand pane, I'm going to get the add tables pane. And I have 1 table here, and I'm going to just double click on customers. Once I do that, you'll see a representation of customers in a little box on the screen. What questions do I want to ask? Well, I want to ask, again, I want to show everyone from New York. So what I want to do, I want to add my fields to what's going to appear in my answer. That's a good way to put it, all right? All I need to do is double click on each one. So you see how when I double click, they appear on the query design grid. And you went through this when you went through a let me try. I'm going to double click. I want to see street address. I want to see city. I want to see state. And I want to see zip. I don't care about the profile picture at this point, but I do want to see all my customers from the state of New York. Now down here in the query design grid, notice the criteria row. There's a row called criteria. I'm going to follow that row to go underneath state, and I'm going to type in NY, which represents New York. Okay, so I typed in NY, and now I'm going to run my query. I'm going to ask it to give me the answer. The answer is how many or who are my customers from the state of New York? And we can see how many there are by counting them. But who are my customers from New York? So I'm putting New York under state, NY, and I'm going to click on the run button, top left. And I get my 2 customers, really easy. So this helps me concentrate on those 2 customers. Now, if I look at my superset of records here, I have that Colorado one who's not appearing. CO is Colorado, right? I'm just getting my New York people. If I just wanted to concentrate on my Colorado person, I can go back to the top half of the view button, click on it. It takes me back to my design grid. And notice New York is now between quotation marks. Access will automatically format that for you, so you don't have to worry about that. So I can put it in between quotation marks, or Access will do that for me automatically. But I just want to look at my 1 record from Colorado. So I'm going to put in CO for Colorado. I'm going to run, and I'm just going to get that 1 record that's going to come up. Now, this may seem simple to you, but it is very powerful. All right, I'm going to go back up to the view button because it really lets us also use criteria, not only criteria, but conditional criteria in the query. What I mean by that is that I can show all my customers from Colorado. Now look at the or row. There's an or row here too. Colorado or NY, which means I'm going to get everybody. So I have everyone from New York and Colorado because I'm using that or row. You see that or row? I can even look for everyone from also New Jersey, NJ, and even from California, CA. Now, I'm not going to get those people coming up. I'm just getting New York and Colorado because that's meeting that. But or means it's also looking for New Jersey in this case and also California. They're not coming up. But if I added another record of someone from California, it will come up. Okay. I can delete the criteria here. I'm just going to delete all the criteria and I'm going to type in everyone from New York. So I'm going to look for everyone from New York. And now we did the or. We did a conditional query on or. Now we're going to do and. What if we want to limit what we see to New York and a certain zip code? Now, look, if in the criteria row, I'm specifying all the customers from New York. And so I'm going over to the next column here and the zip code of 11439. I know we have 2 customers from New York, but I know only one of them, I believe, has a zip code of 11439. So the other New York customer is not going to come up in my results. So we're looking for everyone from New York and a zip code of 11439. And so look, when it's on the same row, it means and. All right. Now I'm going to run it top left. And look, there's no one. So this is a valid. So I want to show you, this is a valid result. This is called a null result. And again, I'm giving you a lot of these buzzwords. You're not going to be tested on these things. Just knowledge. Just because you're not tested on it doesn't mean it's not important. Okay. But sometimes you're going to get a result in a database, and you may have seen this word before, N-U-L-L, null. A null result means that there is no records matching your criteria. That's all it means. It's still a valid. Doesn't mean that, oh, it's blank, there's something wrong with this. It means that there are no customers from the state of New York with a zip code of 11439. So let's look at our table. Let's see why. I have a customer from New York with a zip code of 11438, but not 39. So I'm looking for New York and 11439. Why would you want to do that? Because when you're working for a business, it happens all the time. You're going to want to, one example of many examples is that you're going to want to market to a certain geographic area. People who live maybe in 11439, when you do marketing analytics, that may be an area of New York, that zip code, that you want to market to for whatever demographic reason. Maybe the people who live there are wealthy, and you want to market to them because you want wealthier people to be buying from your high-end products or something like that. Or maybe that area is middle class, and you want to market to just middle class people in that zip code. So maybe that's why you want to do some criteria like that, okay? Or maybe you want to provide some discounts and some deals to people who live in a poorer neighborhood. Happens all the time with marketing. It's called marketing demographics, right? You're going to be looking at marketing profiles of people who live in certain areas. A lot of companies will keep track of not only customers, but also other aspects like your salary, like their salaries. Sometimes businesses will say, can you mind providing your annual salary? It's an optional question. It's because they want to put you in the marketing database, and they're going to market to you. If your annual salary is like $100,000 or more, they're probably going to market more high-end stuff to you after they run a query. You're going to be in the same table as everyone else who either is making $0 per year or $50,000 per year or $200,000 per year. You're going to be in the same table, but the query is going to pull out all those people, say, making more than $100,000. Okay, so there's a lot of different operators, query operators, another key word, operators, that you can use to pull out a subset of records based on some type of criteria. You can do it for a salary criteria, where people live. It is really limitless. So this is a very powerful thing that I'm showing you right here, because if you're in marketing or if you're in healthcare, a lot of times to make the big bucks, you want to get into healthcare analytics. In the hospital, you're a nurse or whatever else, you're a doctor, nurse, you're not analyzing data. Not all of the doctors probably do it more than nurses, okay? But you're not analyzing data to an aspect where you need to use queries to pull out different biometrics, for example, of patients. So you're going to always keep stats. Healthcare informatics keep stats on all the patients in a healthcare facility, right? Blood pressure stats, height, weight, all these wonderful stats. And then the government and the healthcare institution, along with the government, is doing a lot of analysis on the data. And that analysis helps provide funding a lot of the times from healthcare accreditors and even from the federal government to the healthcare facility. So for example, if a health facility, say in a certain geographic area, is shown when you're running the queries, if it shows that a lot of people are coming in with a certain illness, so you're running and you're looking for influenza as the primary diagnosis in a column that says primary diagnosis, healthcare facilities have that. when someone comes into a hospital or something, and then the person's diagnosed with influenza, which is the flu. If we run a query and we see out of 100 patients who came in today that 50 of them, half of them have influenza, that information can save lives because that's sent to the Centers for Disease Control. The query data, I've seen it happen, and with my own eyes, I've been involved with this process, is it's sent to the CDC, which oversees the health of our entire country. And the CDC will analyze and say, wait, something is unusual here with this data. We have 100 patients coming in and half of them have influenza. There's a flu epidemic going on in this city. If 100 patients came in today and half of them have, so we need to send people here to help out. We have to give this hospital more funding to give them, make sure they have the personal protective equipment, PPEs, or other equipment to help them get over this epidemic. Same thing happened with COVID. These queries are run all the time to look at unusual data that's coming in that can help diagnose patients who may have COVID. And the quicker we get on top of this, the more lives that we can save. So queries help save lives in certain ways. We can use it for marketing. We can use it to save lives. We can use it for a lot of reasons, right? And that's why all these organizations rely on databases. We don't know that if we don't learn this, right? So if you want to learn more about querying, do a Google search for querying, database queries. You're going to get a lot of information about that, okay? Now, going back to our little query here, I was looking for New York 11439. I'm going to change this to 11438, right? Because we have no one. We have a null result, which means it's a valid 0 result. Now I'm going to get that one record that's going to come up because we have someone from New York in 11438. Okay, so I'm going to go back to query design, right? And click on run. And I have my Daisy Duck. Our wonderful Daisy Duck lives in New York, 11438. If I had 100 more records of people from New York, 11438, then we would have a nice result to show you. Getting this back to the whole flu situation or a COVID situation, God forbid, we're running this. We can even do criteria with COVID or flu because we may want to look at 50% of those patients and then also query in the same, use criteria in the same query to look at where they're from. So people who have a primary diagnosis of COVID from New York, from Brooklyn, New York. If we see a higher total from Brooklyn, New York than other boroughs, we know we can make an assumption that perhaps there is a COVID outbreak in Brooklyn as compared to some of the other boroughs. So we need to put immediate resources into the Brooklyn area in order to exonerate whatever we can do in order to obliterate, all right, this whole COVID thing. I hate COVID. We want to get rid of it, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to do the query. We're going to really narrow down on our results, and we're going to do whatever we can to mitigate this problem that we're having. So queries are run like this every day to help society. Now, I wanted to show you briefly a query with criteria. Let me just close out of this. So what are we looking for? And this is good because we see we're looking for everyone from New York in a zip code of 11438. We're going to save this. So I'm going to click on the close button. You want to save the changes? Yes. Now I'm going to type New York and 11438. I'm saving it as New York and 11438. I'm going to close out of everything else we have here. And anytime I want to see anyone from New York with 11438, I can just double click on this. And I always have that one. But watch what happens when I add a record. If I change a record, say we have this guy, Wile E. Coyote. Say he moves to Jamaica, New York. And guess what? He moves to the same zip code, 11438. I'm going to run the query, and he matches this criteria. So now Wile E. is going to come up. Okay, so now we have 2 who meet that. So that database table is constantly being updated. It's a real-time table. It's always being updated with customer data. As people put in data, always being updated. And that's what happens in a lot of these organizations. We have very fluid data. I'm going to bring him back to Boulder. And I just made up that zip code for Boulder. Oh, actually, I'm changing that in the query. I want to get out of that. Let's change it in the table, okay? So you see what I just did? I was able to actually update the record in the query. That's something you can do too. That's a little aside. You can also update records using a query, which is pretty cool too. But I'm going to put this back to Boulder, Colorado. I'm just going to make up zip code there, okay? Now, I wanted to show you really briefly. I'm going to close out of this table. Let's do a decision statement with this. And I'm going to open up my notes here, and then we'll do the report and we'll be finished. So decision statement. Let's practice with an IIF statement. IIF means if and only if. So let's just look at that quickly. And again, just as for your own knowledge, but if statements are good because we can create a new field with some type of result in it based on analyzing other fields. We can create a new field with a result in it based on analyzing other fields. That may sound like a mouthful. It really isn't. So let's look at our database again. Let's look at the customers. Okay. And we see, what if I wanted to, let's go to Brooklyn. I want to look at the city of Brooklyn. And if any records have the city of Brooklyn, I want to give some type of coupon to those people. All right. So we have our customers. I want to give coupons just to people from Brooklyn. So I want a new field that says coupon, yes or no, because that result is going to be given to our coupon department, our discount department. In our big company, we have a department that just deals with coupons. And I want them just to have a list of who we're giving coupons to, because they don't know how to look at the data. They just look at yes or no, and they send the coupons out. Okay. So that's just off the top of my head, some type of scenario. Let's do that by creating a query. You can do that in the query too. I'm going to go to create. I'm going to go to query design. I'm going to double click on customers like I did before. I'm going to add customer ID, first name, last name, street address. I want all this wonderful information again. You know, if I didn't put state there when I ran the query, when I asked the question, it wouldn't come up in my results. But I want state there, right? State's there, and I want zip there. But I want a new field here that's going to be called, and I'll type it here first, and then we'll transfer it. Discount. It's going to look like this. Discount. So this is the syntax. So the word I'm using right now is syntax. This is really important for programming. So if you're a future programmer, you'll know this word really, really well. Syntax is just the structure of code. So discount. This is my new field. The syntax means you put the new field, you put a colon, you type in IIF. This is just standard, open parentheses, if city. That's a field that exists. Any fields that exist, you put between brackets, and it's the same format. So you have to really practice using a format over and over and over again, just changing the variables in the format. That's all. If you keep using that same format, all you need to do is remember the format or just borrow it and just change the variables, and you can be really productive. So it always looks the same. So discount is the new field. I can call this anything I want. IIF is always standard, open parentheses, always standard. And any fields you're testing need to be put in brackets. So if city, look how good this is, equals Brooklyn, it's going to be between quotation marks. Then, which is a comma means then, the first comma means then, I'm going to say, yes, we want to give a discount to. Otherwise, the second comma is otherwise, we're going to say no. It has to go between quotation marks. Now we're going to close out this statement. I'm going to put a closing parentheses, and that's all we need to do. Okay. Now, since this word, which I mentioned before, if you came on the chat late, Word is not a text editor. It's a word processor. So this is code. I can't just copy and paste this into Access. For me to really do this the right way, I would really need to type it in to Notepad. So I'm going to do a search for Notepad on my system, and Notepad looks like this. It looks really, really plain. See that little Notepad just came up there? Where's my little Notepad? There it is. Look how plain. This is a plain vanilla text editor. But if I type it in here and then put it in Access, it would work. Not in the word processor. Word processor doesn't work because it has a lot of hidden underneath here are character codes and all this other crazy stuff. This is going in plain vanilla, nice and straight. Now I'm going to go back to Access. I'm just going to type it in here. So this is where I'm going to put my new field. I can blow this up by right-clicking on it and going to Zoom. All right. And I'm going to type in discount, colon. All right. IIF means if and only if, open parentheses, if Brooklyn, I'm sorry, if city equals Brooklyn, then discount is going to be yes. Otherwise, it's going to be no. Close that. So you just have to study this. This always looks the same, no matter what you're testing. It's just a matter of knowing how to use this, okay? I'm going to take this. It's good there. I'm going to click on OK. And you see it appeared down there. So an easier way to do this is by going to the zoom. I'm going to zoom in on it. You're able to see that pretty well, right? Now I'm going to run my query. And let's see if we get discounts for those people from Brooklyn. So you see olive oil is from Brooklyn and she's getting a discount. And the others are getting no discount. So we want to provide this now in a report to someone who can look at it, and just would be people who work in the coupon department. All they need to do is read the report and just send out coupons. They're the ones. So you're doing this stuff. You're the person who needs more knowledge to do this. More knowledge creates to more money. The people who get the report are looking at it and they're just doing a repetitive process, sending out coupons. They're going to be getting paid less money. That's the way it is in business, guys. Okay. So you're going to now create all this wonderful stuff behind the scenes. You're the executive in the office doing all this for people, getting paid the big bucks, and then you're sending out the report. So we're going to create the report on this data. All right, very simple. We just need their names, their addresses, zip codes, and whether or not they're getting a discount. The people in the coupon department will see yes, and they'll mail them out a coupon. Right? They'll do that themselves. They just need the data now. So I'm going to save the query. And we're going to call it discount or not. Just made that up. Makes sense. It's a descriptive name. I'm going to close this. Anytime I run this, I'm going to get my report. Now I'm going to close this. Let's just go back. Let's go to customers. Let's just change now. Say this guy here, Daisy, moved to Brooklyn. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Okay. Now, what's going to happen when I run the query? Now, guess what? Daisy moved to Brooklyn. She's getting a discount. Let's see. Let's make sure that that logic worked. And we see Daisy is now getting the discount because that statement analyzed the city. Okay. If you're not paying attention to this, it's okay. If you are paying attention and getting this, that is wonderful. I'm so happy for that. If you think that you're missing something, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching the recording, rewind it, go back, rewatch it, because this is like prime logic for databases. It's not that difficult. If it's going over your head, it's okay. Watch it again. Watch it again. Try to learn this, because if you learn something like this is very, very basic, by the way, it's really going to catapult you. It's going to make you accelerate into more complex situations. It's going to help you either now or later, no matter what major you're in. This is what it's done. This is what's done in business to earn the money. All right. Now I'm going to close out of this query. And we're all busy. Sometimes we don't pay attention. Maybe thinking about dinner coming up in a couple hours. I didn't eat anything all day. I'm thinking about dinner. We're getting pizza in a little while. Okay. My 2-year-old's downstairs. She's hungry. She's been eating all day, by the way, but I've been working all day. But anyway, I'm thinking about pizza myself, but I'm still keeping track of this stuff. So try to concentrate, try to get this interest, because it's going to help you. It's not going to help anyone else but you if you're interested in this. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a report, and we're going to wrap this up. We're going to create a report on the query. So we can create a report on the query, and a report, and we'll wrap this up with the last bit of notes here, is right here. It's just a formatted hard copy of table or query data. So the report is what's used in business to send to the printer, to print out. Hard copy. Hard copy means something you can touch. It's not software. Yes, we'll see the report, software on the screen, but you can also touch it. And then you're going to give it out at a meeting. You're going to meet with the coupon department. You're the manager and say, all right, everyone, all my staff members, here is the list. I'm going to give you all a sheet of paper. This is what you're going to use. You're going to go to the warehouse. You're going to be on the warehouse floor, and you're going to be sending out these coupons now. That's the formatted hard copy. So let's create the formatted hard copy based on the query, discount or not. I'm going to make sure I select that query. It's going to be selected. I'm going to go to create. And I'm going to go, I told you for the report, we're going to use the wizard. I'm going to go to report wizard right here. All right. So report wizard. It's going to say right there, query we're using, and what do we want to show? All right. I don't think my staff cares about the customer ID. I want them to have the first name, the last name. I want them to know the address, and I want them to know whether or not they're getting the discount. Okay. So I'm adding these fields into my report. So this is the hard copy printout. This is what's going to appear in the printout. I'm going to go to next. Okay, do I want to group? Well, it's always nice to group maybe. I want to group each record by states. So I want a heading called NY for New York, and I want people from New York to be all together, okay? I want a heading, in this case, for Colorado. I want everyone from Colorado, which is just one, to be together. So I want to group on state. So I'm going to double click on state. All right, so I have my group there by state. And then I want to sort. Maybe I want to sort by, I don't know, the last name of the customers. So you see, we're just following this along. Okay, and then layout, I'm going to keep the same. I'm not going to go over layouts. You can play with that. But instead of printing it out this way, you can't see this white sheet. I want to print it out this way because we have more real estate to put our fields going down. That's always good when you have a lot of fields, and anything that's more than like 4 fields, you should really be printing out in landscape. So we see portrait is this way. Landscape is going to be that way. You see, it's lengthwise. Okay, and I'm going to go to next. What do we want to call? Discount or not is fine. And I'm going to click on finish. All right, and here we go. And we can play around with this some more, but this gives us a good idea. We have Colorado. It's actually alphabetized by state, Colorado, C before N. We have Wile E. Coyote. We have the address, no discount. And we have these 2 New York people with discounts, right? Page 1, we have the date. We print it out. We can click on print. It'll send to the printer. Wonderful stuff going on. I'm going to save this by clicking on the X. All right, it's already saved there. All right. Now, watch what happens. If my customers, so this is, like I said, this is always tables, very dynamic, real time, always being updated. Say olive oil moves to Jamaica. She's not, guess what? She ain't getting a discount anymore. She just lost her discount by moving. She has a beautiful, bigger house, beautiful household, but she's not getting a discount. I'm going to close out of the table. Go back to my customers report. Guess what? It's all linked. Open up customers. I'm sorry, I opened up the form by accident. That's updated too, if we looked. But I'm going to open up the report in this case. I'm going to double click, and you're going to see that our wonderful olive oil, poor little olive oil, she's not getting our discount. Okay. Now you've noticed the fields are a little cockeyed here. It's not showing up really too much. You can go to that design view. All right. And actually move them around if you wanted to. You can extend this. So discount shows, and then go back to report view. All right, and see how you can see more of this. We can actually extend it some more. So design view is good in that case sometimes when you're moving around the field names to try to position things, organize all the objects on the page, okay? So we have our wonderful report. Any questions about all the stuff that I just covered today? I know I covered a lot for you guys. It's about time to go, time to wrap up. I'm going to close out of our wonderful report. You want to save changes? Yes. Close out of that. But let me just show you one more report because I'm excited to show this to you too. I'm just going to click on customers. I'm going to go to create and just click on report, not go through the wizard. Look how quickly I can create the report, almost like we did with the form. So we have our report there with all our customers. We have to kind of lay it out a little bit better, but we have a wonderful picture of all our customers in there too. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you your live chat assignment, and it's going to be a really easy one. You want to know what it is? It's for you to upload a document that says, I watched the last live chat, okay? And you'll get credit. Just a document that says, I watched the last live chat, and that's it. All right, that's all I want you to do. I want to make it nice and easy as we go through this last week. Let me stop this. If no one has any questions, I appreciate the attendance today. I just want to say to everybody, it was a real pleasure having you all in this course. This is our last chat. It was really great for me to meet with you every Monday. Today's Monday at 3 o'clock Eastern time. It was really invigorating for me. I really enjoyed teaching this class. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season. all the best in your personal and professional endeavors. Adrian, party time, right? Awesome. Adrian has the party symbol that he just put up. And it's just a matter of staying focused on your classes. Don't give up. We're going to school in a very, I'm teaching, you're taking classes during a, that's really good. Eric's wrote, time for some tequila. Eric wrote, time for some tequila. Just be careful. Don't go too overboard with the tequila. I always think you can have fun partying and all that, but to an extent, right? Everything in moderation, right? Octavia, it was a real pleasure. But just stay focused, guys. We're going to school during a very unusual time. COVID, pandemic. How many people in this world can say they went to school during a pandemic? Nobody, because the last pandemic, I believe, was in 1918. And people who went to school then are probably not alive anymore, right? It was a long time ago. So we have a distinction of trying to study stuff that is foreign to us, like all this new stuff, during a very, very negative time in human history. Very trying time, a time where we have to remain focused. And you know what? You're here today, you're watching this chat, either the recording or you're here live. You are winning. You're winning. You're rising above the top. So pat yourself on the back, because you're like 1% of the population. You're in that 1% who's like focused, doing what they can. And it's wonderful. And some people aren't winning because it's none of their fault, because of the pandemic, because they're getting affected. And maybe you're one of those people, but you're still here. So if you're watching this right now, you're still here, you're focused, you're still concentrating, you're still here concentrating on your education, and you're remaining focused, which is a wonderful achievement. Don't discount these achievements. These are not small achievements. They go over our head, but we don't reflect on them. We don't really understand how important they are to us, because we think that it's just normal what we're doing. We're not in a normal place in this world right now, okay? But we're managing to stay focused, and we're managing to achieve whatever we can. So keep that same attitude throughout your college career, through your life. And I know you're going to be really successful, guys. I mean that, okay? So all the best. Happy holidays. Ashley, thank you. Octavia, Sierra, Lauren, always a pleasure. Adrian, Eric, all you guys, everyone watching the chat, be healthy, be well. I hope to see you again in the future, maybe in another class in the future. And if not, we're gonna run into each other one of these days, right? I appreciate it. Thank you, Ashley. Any last minute questions? Anything? Everybody's good? All right, I'm gonna stop recording. Be well, be safe. Time to sign off. Happy holidays.